Thanks for watching. My name's Laura. I'm an illustrator. I live in Cambridge. I like to describe what I do for my job as a professional plate spinner. And that basically means I illustrate, I do comics, I run manga workshops, craft workshops, anything like that. When I was a kid, even before primary school, I always been into animation, cartoons. It was encouraged a lot to, enjoy yourself, watch cartoons. We had Ninja Turtles, He-Man figures, etc. all around the house. We were very, very lucky, very geeky family in the 80s, and that was great. My dad was very much into cartoons and comic books, and I used to go around the comic shops with him. From watching different types of cartoons and playing video games when I was 13 or so, I had a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo, and inside the video game packaging were these excellent illustrations, which I loved. Obviously the games come from Japan, so I was very much into Super Mario, obviously, Street Fighter, and seeing these great Capcom artworks inspired me to want to copy and imitate. So I drew a lot of characters from video games. Going into the comic shops, a lot of translated Japanese comics had started coming out at that time as well. In the late 80s there was a bit of a backlog, so we used to go through the bins, and I used to pick up a lot of stuff by Rumiko Takahashi, and she did Urusei Yatsura, those obnoxious aliens, and Ranma. Some of the viewers may remember Inuyasha. That was a big popular one, but and Ranma were pretty much my favourite types of stories. Very colourful, cartoony, stupid. You didn't really need to know much Japanese, even though they were translated. It was very visual slapstick sort of humour. So there seemed to be a lot of random alien princesses that were popular in manga, Japanese comics at the time. So there were a lot of alien princesses that were very strong female characters as well. And I thought that was very cool. Cartoons and comics were mainly for boys or kids in general. There weren't many strong women characters, and that was what first inspired me rather, to go and seek out a lot of Japanese comics. Alright, the one thing that people notice, I think, is that how massive the hair was. Good grief. It's a big problem, I think. I learned how to draw in a certain way, and then because I didn't make any guidelines for myself. I didn't do the whole circle and head and eye play. I just drew eye, nose, face, etc. It's an awful rip-off as well. It's like Ranma and Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon, and I'm just so glad that I didn't have the internet, because I would just be slaughtered. So yeah, it was a massive learning curve, and I did 160 pages of that, and I think about 80 got published. Talking to people before the internet about how they were making their comics and stories, I was able to kind of level up, if you will, and by that time I'd seen different anime and different stories, so I was able to amalgamate loads of different things, I think, to come up with something a bit more original than my previous comic. So it's worth writing off stuff. I think once you've experimented and learnt from them, it's okay to go, I love you, but time to put you down to one side now. So I'd started publishing Biomecha. It's a story about a boy that has biomechanical arms, but he can't control them due to technical difficulties, and he ends up going to this specialist school / college where he meets other folks that have kind of a little bit X-Men style PSI powers, hyper knowledge, mind reading, etc. So he's a bit, whoa, okay, I'm a bit out of my depth, but it's interesting. It's better than staying at home. And then I started using just photocopies. My dad says, why don't you use my photocopier at work? Okay, Dad. So on a Saturday, I think he regretted that. I made lots and lots of copies and started selling them for £1, these 20-page comics. And then it just went on and on and on. And basically, I'm still doing the same thing. Much like my first comic, it didn't have an end, whereas it does now. It took me a long time, but it does have an ending now. And I've basically done like 400 pages, 8 issues. And instead of doing issues, I think I'm just going to do the last book and just do the 200 pages odd and just publish a book. So that's my goal now, to finish and maybe draw something better after I've finished. But I need to do it. It's been 20 years, so I kind of need to get it out of my system, and to prove that doing comics is fun, it's fulfilling, which I've always felt whenever I've had rubbish times in my life. I've always recalibrated myself and just gone back to drawing comics, even if it's one comic every year or every other year or even every 2 years if you've got big life things going on. It's really helped me just get my stuff together and just help me move on. So I guess that's why I do it, because I know that when I immerse myself in making a comic, I'm going to feel better and feel like I've achieved something and fulfilled after a while. It's going to take a while.